if you are relying on any cloud service to protect your data, stop doing that. Today we're going to talk about the growing trend of people losing accounts, even major players in some of our world's industries losing accounts. And the fact that some of these people will lose a lot more things than they think because they're relying on the super simple convenience of big tech companies to keep all of their data safe. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel, leave us a like and a comment down below. And we do want to talk about this issue, and I had somebody sent me a tip via email about this, and this is a topic that just dropped, but it was so related to other topics we've talked about, and including some of the modern news right now going on with the AI moderation at YouTube and things like that. So we want to go ahead and talk about this a little bit, and then also provide a few tips at the end of the day. Now, of course, one of the challenges with our modern world is they want everything to be as super simple and easy and convenient. So while Microsoft does a good security thing in using passkeys and removing passwords and utilizing all these systems, the problem is that the average person doesn't know how all of these things work together, and they have a greater chance of losing their account if the device with the passkeys happens to die. And of course, you have the other issue of what happens if your account simply gets locked. What recourse do you have? None. Effectively, none. We'll go ahead and talk about this. I want to use as a jumping board here. We'll talk briefly about this is from Esports News UK. This is how far this is going. Lazy AI moderation is destroying YouTubers' livelihoods after 12 million plus accounts deleted. Now, to be completely fair to YouTube, millions of accounts are deleted every year because scammers and spammers and things like that. What makes this current trend bad is that some large, long-running channels have also been terminated, and everybody is turning their moderation over to AI bots, and it becomes practically impossible to even get somebody to look into it. And what the AI says initially just becomes the final word, and there aren't any employees left at many of these companies to even do a human review of your account. I talked about this with an issue we've been having with a client of mine with their Facebook page, where somebody that we don't know apparently is the primary account holder to this account, despite we can't find any reference of that anywhere. But if we try and change something, hey, verify your identity with the link we send to this email, and we don't know who that email address is for. 8 weeks of bouncing back and forth with probably AI automated hell with Facebook. We end up hiring a third-party company to come in and get the situation mediated, and that was kind of the problem, and it shouldn't take that. But this is kind of what we're seeing here, is that YouTube is relying more and more on the AI moderation, and then these YouTube channels are deleted. Now, some of the massive YouTube channels, which already have massive followings and have massive followings even off the YouTube platform, they can get their creators behind them, and when the @TeamYouTube Twitter account ends up getting 1 million people bombarding them about one particular channel, they take notice and look into it and go, oh, that was a dumb idea, let's twist this around. But when the same unjust banning happens to somebody with a new channel, or just even a channel my size, which isn't massive, and if we were immediately shut down, I don't think I could get more than 100 people to be shooting messages to @TeamYouTube that would cause enough notice to get some human being to look at it. And the fact of the matter is about most of these situations is that people are not actually doing anything violatable. And the automation messages don't tell you what you broke. So you violated the terms of service. How did I do so? You violated the terms of service. How did I do so? You violated the terms of service. How can I respond to this? Log into your account. I can't. That's the absurdity. So you can see here that all sorts of people have been talking about this, And again, a lot of these channels removed. It's not just like, oh, we've terminated 12 million people's livelihoods. Now, it was probably more like 12,460,000 spams and scams, and 248 people got up in the middle of it and lost livelihoods. The problem is those 248 lost their livelihoods, and there's no human that's going to review the situation. And that is a problem. And I think these companies, if they happen to be the stewards of having such large accounts, they need to have the support staff to handle and have a human look at these. So you can say, well, we can't have 12 million, accounts looked at by real people. Well, then maybe you should turn off your AI and automation tools a little bit. I don't know if I like that idea either. But when you should have obviously some clear markers that would say, hey, we need to do at least a little best case scenario here. And I do agree with some of the people leaving comments that no AI bot should ever have the capability of removing somebody's livelihood. Maybe if you are part of the YouTube partnership program, then it has to have an automated or a manual review before any decisions are made. And they need to be completely clear and explicit and exact about what exactly the alleged violation is. That certainly would be a situation. But there have been a lot of these cases, and right now it's being blamed mostly on AI automation. And there's even some cases where one person creates an actual song with their actual account, uploads it. These AI bots that the YouTube CEO wants to promote takes that thing and just blows the video up. Well, they'll take down the original video for stealing the AI crap that stole the thing in the first place. Where's the human moderation in that? The channel that stole the clip and made it viral, they should be immediately terminated. 100%. I agree with that. And let the guy who made the original thing stay, but that's not what is happening. So there's lots of these cases about this going on. But what somebody emailed me is even more disturbing, and it did remind me of a case we looked at earlier. So this is Paris, what's his name? Paris Butterfield, and the person has another name there as well. It's a hyphenated name. I completely forget the third one. I just remember Butterfield from the actor, right? Asa Butterfield, right? So Paris Butterfield is not just a random Apple user. This is an advocate who actually is on dozens of O'Reilly programming books, an actual programmer in Apple's programming languages. And 20 years of a digital life with no response. Now, this just happened yesterday as I'm recording this, 2 days ago when it comes out. So chances are this is a huge guy. This story is being picked up everywhere. It's being discussed all over the place, like over here on Hacker News. Actually the author here, the OP, is actually commenting inside of this. And so my prediction is this is probably going to get overturned because it's embarrassing for Apple. But there are some things to mention. So the person obviously has an Apple ID that's 25 years old, iCloud account, Apple Developers ID, tons of programs, tons of applications, written dozens of books on the topic, an actual, real professional in the field of Apple. Well, he has a 6 terabyte iCloud account, and it needed recharge. So he goes to a major retailer, something the size of a Walmart, and buys a Apple gift card directly from that retailer, and his account is immediately locked. And all other accounts are locked, and devices are locked, and everything. Now, I do have questions. How can the entire device entirely be locked? Is it losing the functionality of the device, or just the functionality of the device with all of the synced data in and of the cloud? So that is certainly an issue there. And so what he did, he said 30 years as a loyal customer, authoring technical books on on Apple's own programming language, spending tens upon thousands of dollars on devices, apps, conferences, and services, locked out of his personal and professional life with no explanation and no recourse. So it goes down to buying this card. This is what he believes is the trigger here. But even that, a person from higher level support at Apple responded to one of the news articles about this under the condition of anonymity, and basically said, well, it may probably or may not have been just that. But here's the first point, is that you might think you might be safe going to a big box store like Walmart to buy your gift cards. The problem is there are so many low-paid employees in the supply chain for these stores. They are probably a bigger target for thieves, because what they do is they will take these cards, redeem the codes, and then do some finagling with the gift card that gets sold. And then when that gift card gets sold, they get the immediate notice that there's funds on there, and then they can steal the funds. So probably the smaller stores might actually be a better place to buy some of these. I don't know. But there were other news inside of the Hacker News that all suggested that Apple has a lot of weird fraud detection stuff tied to Apple gift cards that many people who are Apple fans will not redeem them for that purpose. But he says he buys a $500 Apple gift card. Now, don't forget, you can use your Apple account cash to buy devices at Apple stores. So to the point, $500 in an Apple account is not an outrageously large sum of money. Now, it might be for an Amazon account, might be for something else, but for an Apple account, whatever. And he uses this to pay for a 6 terabyte iCloud Plus storage plan. The code failed. The vendor suggested the card number was likely compromised and agreed to reissue it. So he goes back to the place where the card came from, provided evidence, and it was reissued, and the account was locked. Now, he tries to tell Apple that this is a legitimate card. Here's the actual receipt from a major retailer. And he didn't call out the specific major retailer, but he says it's on the size scale of Walmart if you're in the United States. Of course, he is Australia, I believe. Let's see. Well, I'm not sure where it is. Australians think Woolworth scale. Americans think Walmart scale. So he provides evidence of actually purchasing this card, and you cannot log in because your account has been locked, and then you can contact customer support. Of course, he needs to log in, which he can't do for part of that. So the account was flagged in accordance with the Apple Media Services Terms and Condition. He said he effectively have over $30,000 of previously active bricked hardware. iPhone, iPad, Watch, Macs cannot sync, update, or function properly. Lost access to thousands of dollars in purchased software and media. The Apple representative claims that only media server side of the account is blocked, but now all the devices sign me out of iMessage, and I can't sign back in, and I can't even sign out of the blocked iCloud account because it's barred from the sign out API as far as I can tell. He says he cannot log into secure file transfer system Apple uses to exchange information because it relies on an Apple ID, even though that's what they're trying to say. And he says down here, everything gets wrong. He says, I can't even download the iCloud photos. There are repeated errors, auth errors on the account, so I can't make photos work. And he says, I don't have 6 terabyte device to sync them to, even if I could. And then he talks about the support nightmare. The support staff refused to tell him why he was banned. He even asked for escalation. They said, nah, we're not going to escalate you. They can't do anything else for you anyway. And so that's a problem. So here is a little bit of the thread that he gives us. They, of course, tell him just create a new account. And he points out that creating a new account would look like a circumventing a ban, and that could cause further problems, and that actually would blacklist you from being a developer on Apple ever. And so creating a new account, which is the Apple support suggestion, is actually the worst idea you can do. And so he gets down, and once again, this is not just Joe Blow. This is somebody who actually is a high public figure promoting Apple products for 30 years. Okay. And so he lost his photos, he lost his contacts, he lost his messages, he lost all his developer tools, all the applications he's written, everything. Now, there is some discussion in Hacker News where he is actually responding as well. So let me just type in some of these. And he basically goes in here, and the big question I have is, how do you completely lose access to all your devices? Maybe it's possible. Maybe since your device is attached to an account that is locked, maybe they do lock the devices. I don't know that. I know personally, as I have used Apple devices in the past, and mind you, I haven't had any Apple devices for 5 years, and I don't think I've actually used any iCloud. Like, I think the only thing I've ever done with an Apple device is signed in to download some apps, and that would have been 10 years ago. But at least in that time, you could sign into Apple, do all your stuff, take the Apple ID off, and not have your device signed into Apple. Can he not do that anymore? That is something I have a question of. He says down here, I do have backups of most data, including photos, but there are things I can't back up, like actively edited iWork documents and things like that. I can rebuild from it, but it's still a crap show, and my very expensive devices are bricked. Again, I don't know how they're bricked. Maybe they did get bricked because that senses something was stolen. But it doesn't make sense to me that Apple would brick your physical device just because something happens with your with your iCloud account. Because what if some hacker gets in and steals your iCloud account access? It seems to me like you'd still have the ability to access your devices. You just wouldn't have the ability to sync all of your devices. All right, so he goes in, and there's not much of the only other thing in here that was of interest to me is somewhere down near the very bottom. We also see that earlier this year, he actually had another account with Wise, where Wise, on his blog, Wise locked him out of 60,000 Australian dollars in his account. I'm not sure why that's not loading, but anyway, I did read the article. I saw it on the other computer before I started here. There you go. So he actually loses 60,000 Australian dollars from Wise. So he has a previous account lock earlier this year. So he's either had a really bad string of luck. Maybe he has a hacker in the background that's doing weird stuff that he's unaware of. That's another possibility, because it seems weird that he gets locked out of a Wise account, and then a few months later he gets locked out of an Apple account. The one Apple person that did respond to, I think it was Apple Insider they responded to, said, there might have been a number of reasons why the device might get locked. But still, we have a situation where a big player in the Apple world is locked out of a device. And it made me remember this article here, which we covered from back in August, when AWS deleted a 10-year-old account and all of its data without any warning. Yikes. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. And this guy here, again, is not just a random Joe. This is a guy who maintains a lot of FOSS infrastructure. Like, you've seen that little meme, right, of the whole infrastructure. One little thing is some guy in Iowa, right? Yeah, he's one of those little things, some guy in Iowa, and his whole account is just... and this ties into the fact that he had an account and a backup account, and the primary account didn't process correctly, and they never even tried to do the backup account. He called them up with plenty of time, but he couldn't get through to anybody, and they just deleted the account. Now, it turns out that because, again, he is a massive player in this field, that it got the attention of an insider at AWS, and AWS was able to restore the account. But here's the problem. It shouldn't take somebody who's written 20 books on the field of Apple to get an Apple account restored, which I predict is going to happen. And who knows? It might happen by the time this video goes live. I don't know. I'm recording this on the Sunday. Not everybody is this massive 10-year developer in critical infrastructure on AWS that has contacts into AWS to do this. We need a system by which an average person, if they are unjustly blocked, can still gain access to their data, like this guy here. If you remember this one, and this was particularly funny because this is really the first time that this type of thing happened. And what's funny about this to me is that in Eric Schmidt's book on the new digital world, where he's talking about, and this book was written 10, 15 years ago about the future of the world and all these cool things that's going to happen and all these, one of the things he mentions in his book is the technology is going to power this whole new world of medicine. We'll just be able to securely pass files to our doctor without even having to go into a doctor's office, and we'll get all the things treated. It's going to be amazing. So here he is talking about this. And during COVID, when people wanted to minimize the doctors, his son, a toddler, has a rash in the nether regions. And the doctor says, shoot me a photo. Great. He takes a picture, sends it to the doctor. Doctor says, oh, that's no big deal. I'm going to write you a prescription. No need to come into the office. And so he gets the prescription. It gets forwarded to the local pharmacy. He goes to the local pharmacy, picks up the medicine. No big deal. Until Google's automated system, and I know Apple tried to roll out the CSAM device scanning, which they end up at least somewhat backtracking on that. Well, Google apparently was doing it because Google looks at this photo of the nether regions of a toddler and says, whoa, look at this pedo. Okay. And so they alert the authorities. Google alerts the authorities. The authorities start an investigation, and he connects the authorities to the doctor. The doctor says, yep, that's the photo I asked him to take. Yep, it was medical. And yep, we got the kid treated. Great. Police drop all things. They say it's perfectly fine. Yet this man is still, to this day, locked out of his Google account. He lost his contacts, he lost his pictures, he lost all access to everything he had tied to Google because Google has falsely labeled him as a horrible PDF file. And because of that, this man loses everything, which is ironic because Eric Schmidt, the former head of Google, is saying how it's going to be amazing. Yeah, it's going to be so amazing to do all your medical stuff while Google is spying on your pictures in the background and accusing you of things you're not actually doing. So call me a little bit concerned if I do not trust your infrastructure. But all of this gets into multiple situations here of people who they've placed their trust in these systems. They have their files and their photos. They're on your Apple Cloud. They're on your Google Cloud. And for the average person listening to this video, maybe not the average person listening to this video because we're all kind of tech geeks here, but for the average person in this world, you are placing your trust in one of those two companies because you either have an iPhone or you have an Android, and most people just do the default thing and automatically sync all your stuff to there, and then it's always there, and so you never have to worry about it, and it's so amazing until it's gone. And the problem here is that your data is not secure if the only place you're backing it up is in their cloud. Because their cloud could go down and they do not have an absolute guarantee. If you read the terms of service, they are not going to absolutely guarantee your photos will always be there. They don't. They can't and they won't. You can't have any recourse if they lose your favorite family photos in your life. You can't do that. They also can't guarantee you will be able to access those if some AI automated bot seems to want to close your account down for some reason outside of anybody's control, and they refuse to get a human to look into the situation. And this is where every company is going towards doing. From YouTube to Apple to Google to Facebook, everybody is laying off the support staff, turning all of these account automation deletions over to AI systems, and nobody has any recourse because you say it's wrong. And then if you've ever tried to talk to a psychopathic AI system, you know you ain't getting anywhere. I'm so sorry about this. It was really funny. I saw True Stream Media did another video recently, and they put two AIs talking to each other, and they just go back and forth, like not saying anything, but just talking to each other, each one thinking they're talking to a human and feeding it what it wants to hear. It's really hilarious. All right. But the problem is if you are relying on these companies, it could be Microsoft with your forced Microsoft account and storing all your photos in theirs. It could be your iPhone. It could be your Android phone. It could be some other service like Proton is trying to get everybody to put all of your eggs in their basket too. And if I were forced to have an account from some company that puts every egg in the same basket, I'd probably choose Proton over the other ones. But I don't want to put all my eggs in Proton's basket either. Okay, and the hated one just recently, this last week, did an excellent video on that topic. The overall point of this is do not assume that these big tech companies are going to back up your data for you. Now, if you want to use those as an extra backup, more power to you. I still wouldn't, because clearly they can scan your photos and look through them. Clearly. I mean, ask this guy who sent a picture that the doctor requested. Okay. That wasn't a picture he put up on Facebook somewhere publicly for the world to see. It was a photo he snapped with his Android phone and sent it to his doctor. That's what he did. That's all he did with it. Google flagged it. Why? Because apparently they can see your photos. Whether it's algorithmically looking for something, you know, and that brand new sapling could look like something it's not, or any number of other things. I would not rely on that. If you do need to rely on some form of cloud storage, make sure it's encrypted on your end and stored as an encrypted blob on the cloud service. Better if you can have your own NAS, your own offline storage, your own cold storage, and have everything backed up yourself in a couple different locations without the internet being involved. That is infinitely better. Now, I did a video in the past looking at even building a local Nextcloud server. You can go out, do all your fun things with your phone all day, come in, turn that sync on, and it will automatically sync that stuff to a local server on your device in your house, and you can use that as a good backup. Of course, make a backup of that data as well. That goes without saying. But you want to have multiple ways of doing it. The point is, though, you can sync your calendars, your contacts. You can sync all of this stuff to a local server. Or you can do what I do. I have my own encrypted Nextcloud on a cloud server, and that's what all that stuff goes to. Now, I don't do any photos or things like that because I just don't want that stuff on the cloud anywhere. Everything I do picture-wise, offline, cold storage. If I were to have a catastrophic event and the van gets destroyed by an oncoming freight train, I've only lost a few months worth of data, because every couple months before I leave and right when I come back, before I leave for my trips around the country and as soon as I come back from my trips around the country, all of my data gets backed up and stored in multiple different locations. I got some physical stuff here with me that, you know, if there's a fire breakout, I can quickly grab those backups and leave with them. And I also have a capability, I store some in a locked fire safe at a friend's house as well. So the worst case scenario, I lose at most 6 months worth of data of every picture, every video, every file, every document, everything. And nobody's going to break in and encrypt it. Nobody's going to break in and steal it. It's going to be information that I have and can securely access anytime that I need to. Do not rely on these companies. Look at Nextcloud, buy yourself external hard drives, sync all of your data to it. And hey, if they're storing the data there just as an extra backup, that's okay. Just understand you rely on that entirely. You are placing your life into the hands of an AI system that is simply trained to get results and doesn't care what the right thing is to do. So let me know your thoughts about all this. Let me know, do you have solid backup strategies, or are you still relying on it? Or are you looking for ways to get off of those infrastructures? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.